So today on Comic Class, we're going to be taking a look at the X-Men storyline X-Cutioner song. And yeah, so this book was quite a long read. It was about, I think, 290 pages long. So that's why the video is kind of late, because it took me a while to get through the entire book. But yeah, let's just jump right into it, because I have a lot to talk about with this book. So the book basically starts off with Professor X at some type of an event, supporting mutant and humans, basically trying to coexisting. They try and give his message out there on this event that a lot of different people go to try to get them to listen to his theory of humans and mutants living together in peace and harmony. And it's a pretty cool speech, because he talks about all types of different bigotry that has happened in American history. Because this takes place in a fictional world, mutants are kind of like an allegory to discrimination against minorities in around the 60s. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, during this whole speech, Professor Xavier gets shot by, it seems to be, Cable, and this is a sort of assassination attempt on Charles Xavier's life. Now, while this is happening simultaneously, the X-Men are fighting against the Horsemen of Apocalypse. So, right off the bat, it makes it seem as though Apocalypse is the main villain of this story arc. And the Horsemen are no joke. They put up a good fight against the X-Men, but the X-Men do fight back. I did enjoy the fight between Colossus and one of the Horsemen. That was pretty cool. Colossus is a really cool character. And yeah, so after they have a fight, they find out that Jean Grey and Cyclops got kidnapped by Caliban, which is one of the Horsemen. I believe he's the Horseman of Death for Apocalypse. I'm not too sure about that, because I think Archangel was supposed to be the Horseman of Death, and he's still in, the series at this point. He's the Archangel, so I don't know, exactly how that happened, but that's what it states, is that Caliban is the Horseman of Death. He claims that. And his fight against Scott and Jean shows how strong he is as a fighter, so that was pretty cool, how he was able to kind of like get past Jean Grey's psychic abilities. And yeah, so we get to see that Xavier is basically on death's door. He was infected with a type of technovirus that kind of like destroys your cells in the body. It kind of like just overtakes your body and destroys you a little bit every minute, I'm guessing. So it's pretty cool. We get introduced to a lot of different characters in this story. We get to see the New Mutants and X Factor. We also get to see that the X-Men are kind of out for blood, because they think Charles might die, so they're pretty, hell-bent on getting some answers. We get to see that the Beast. Now, the one thing about this story arc, before I get farther into it, is that, the story arc is okay. I don't think it's a great story, but one thing I did think was great about it that I enjoyed was the character development and the way the characters acted. They're very well written, the characters. I think the story plot is a little weak, but the characters more than make up for it, because Beast throughout this story is fantastic. And I like how he constantly questions, on how smart he is. Because dealing with this technovirus in the future, it's kind of hard with his, modern viewpoint with science. So I think that's pretty cool how we get to see Beast really working with Xavier, trying to save him on his own, with the help of a few people. So yeah, that's cool. But jumping forward, you see that Mr. Sinister seems to be part of the plot of this story, and that he's moving some of the pieces along, and he made a deal with some dude to capture Jean Grey and Scott Summers, aka Jean Grey and Cyclops the Phoenix, I guess you could say. And it's pretty cool. So Sinister basically made a deal for some small canister, and we'll find out what that was at the end of this story. So after this, basically, Jean and Cyclops get taken to the dude that made the deal with Mr. Sinister, and Apocalypse's Horsemen, they awaken Apocalypse, basically. But Apocalypse was not finished rejuvenating in his chamber, so he's very weak at this moment. He's still a powerful mutant and can take on a lot of the X-Men at once, but he's not at full power, not even close. So it's pretty cool to see him. Now, the next part of the story, you see the X Factor, I believe, fight against the X-Force, I believe, fight against the X-Men, and the battle was pretty cool. We get to see a lot of different people fighting in it. Gambit's one of my favorite characters. Wolverine's pretty cool in this fight as well. He has this moment where it looks like he stabs through one of the fighters, but he doesn't go all the way through, so I have no idea if that's supposed to be a regular punch, the way the art was drawn, or if he actually stabbed the dude. But yeah, we have a lot of cool fights. During the fight, we get to see that Beast, Colossus, and Iceman are fighting some of the Horsemen of Apocalypse, and Beast gets completely wrecked by one of them. I believe it's Famine that attacks Beast and just completely destroys him, but they do manage to save Beast and defeat Caliban and Famine, so that's pretty cool. After that, we get to see that Mr. Sinister has a run-in with Bishop. And Bishop has a super cool moment where he just completely shoots a hole into Mr. Sinister's head. Now, I'm not very familiar with Mr. Sinister's character. He's one of my favorites in how he's designed, but I have not read a lot of comics of Mr. Sinister, so I have no idea if he's some type of robot or if he's immortal, because he is shot clear through the head and he's completely fine. So I'm definitely going to have to check out some comic recommendations for Mr. Sinister, so I wanted to learn more about this character. But he's the one that kind of reveals to the X-Men basically who is the one behind this entire plot. So that's pretty cool. After that, we can see that Cable is readying up, and he confirms that it wasn't him that tried to kill Professor Xavier. I do enjoy this panel. It's so ridiculous seeing how much guns Cable has on him. But I think it's a complete and perfect picture to sum up what it was like for comics in the 90s. So I wanted to include that in this video. So finally we get the introduction of the character named Strife, which is a clone, I guess, of Cable. It's not really well explained, and they don't really give you a clear answer on who's the clone. But Strife is a villain, and he's the main villain of this story arc. And, so that explains why you wanted Jean Grey and Cyclops being his parents. So after the battle with X-Force, basically the X-Men held them captive, I guess you could say. And we get to see that while this is going on, Apocalypse has a fight with Beast and the other X-Men that are on the other end of the mission. And the fight between Apocalypse and these X-Men are really cool. We get to see him use different abilities. I always enjoyed his ability to increase his body size. But it's really cool is he actually is able to stretch his body as well, so I thought that was interesting. I did not know Apocalypse to do that. Now, Apocalypse is not even close to full power, so he is fighting at least 5 different people at once, so he does take a beating, sort of, especially since one of those people is Archangel. Archangel is ridiculously strong. Colossus is ridiculously strong. Quicksilver is fast, and Storm is, an Omega level mutant, I believe. So it made sense why he's getting, kind of beat as well. It's having a hard time fighting them. After this, we can see that Cable and Bishop on a mission to recover some files, meet up with Cable. Basically, they find Cable, and they see each other, and they have a battle with each other. And this battle is pretty cool. We get to see during this, there's another fight. Now, there's a lot of fights in this comic, which is why I said I don't think it's really that much content in here when it comes to stuff to talk about, but more so just, fights in general and their outcomes. We get to see that Warrington, I believe his name's Warren, he basically decapitates one of the members of, I believe it's X-Factor or X-Force, and it's pretty sad how, that happens. But, like Archangel says, they're in the heat of battle, they can't really think about it. So after that, we get to see that Wolverine and Cable, they kind of spare Cable's life because they believe what he says, that it wasn't him, that there's a possibility it could be a clone. So they start to work together, which is a really cool thing to see. So, we have the battle with the last of the Horsemen, I believe, and he gets defeated by Havoc, which Havoc's a very powerful mutant, being the brother of Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men. And yeah, so we get to see that Wolverine, Cable, and Bishop are kind of working together, and they teleport with Cable to Cable's hideout, I guess you see her headquarters, which he has above the Earth, I guess some type of space station. It's pretty cool. We get to see some more development with Beast, kind of contemplating what his, knowledge would be if he were to just study instead of being on the front lines always fighting, which again is a very good character development and a very cool look at the character's insight into his own abilities. And I really want to read some more X-Men stories, so I want to see where this character goes, after this. Going off of that, we just see that Stripe basically goes to Apocalypse's hideout and fights against all of his Dark Riders. And after he defeats them brutally, easily he defeats them, he goes to recover Apocalypse and to have him fight him. And this is where we get a fight between Apocalypse and Stripe, and the battle was pretty cool. Yet again, it has to be mentioned that throughout this story, Apocalypse does get beat, but it's because he's barely at any power. He states this many times throughout the story, that he was not supposed to be woken up this early, and every time he goes in to rejuvenate, he kind of is forced back out. So Apocalypse really does get beat in this comic. And later on, we do get to see there's one thing that Stripe does that really puts this into perspective on why he was able to beat Apocalypse. But we'll get to that later, and I'll mention it when we get to it. We have the fight with Apocalypse and Stripe, and it's pretty awesome. And Apocalypse manages to escape. You get to see that Wolverine and Bishop and Cable, they're on Bishop's spaceship, and they figure out that Jean Grey and Cyclops are basically, in space with them. They're on the moon, which is something I didn't notice the first time I was reading it, until Wolverine mentioned it, but you can't see it in the background in one of the panels. We get to see that Apocalypse basically arrives at the X Mansion, and he basically makes a deal with the Archangel. Basically tells them that he will be able to heal Charles and Xavier in exchange for them to help him take out Strife. While all this is going on, Cyclops and Jean basically try to make an escape from Strife's hideout, and it's a really cool scene. And eventually they find kind of Strife, I guess, as a child. I don't know, it's really weird. And basically Strife wants them to kill him to save themselves, but of course Cyclops and Jean, being the heroes they are, try to find another way, and this kind of infuriates Strife. And eventually Cyclops opens a doorway, or an opening in the hideout, and they get sucked out, and they basically question before they're out of the hideout, why exactly are they being sucked out, and it gets revealed that they are in space. Pretty epic ending for one of the issues, I have to say. After this, we get some really cool panels. I really like the art direction. Reminded me a lot of The Dark Knight Returns from Frank Miller, so I'm wondering if that was an inspiration for whoever did the art for this issue. But the panels remind me a lot of that. So if you know anything about this issue and maybe why it had these type of panels, leave a comment down below. But after this, we get to see Apocalypse heal Charles Xavier of the technovirus, and it's really cool how he explains how he achieves this. It's a pretty scary scene for all of the X-Men to witness, because Apocalypse is one of their greatest, if not their greatest enemy, in a physical sense, and he's very intellectual as well. But they do trust that he might be telling the truth, especially Archangel, which knows firsthand because of his metal wings what Apocalypse is capable of. He made him into what he is, the blue skin and the metal wings. So basically we go back to with Cyclops and Jean, and it turns out that Stripe basically orders them to kind of look at his face and to understand what they created. Which is, it's kind of hard, because you don't know if this is the original Cable or this is, just a clone. It's never explained at the end of the story. So, knowing that Cyclops sent Cable to the future to save his life, it's just, I don't know. Strife's just not very good of a character. I'm kind of glad he dies. Because he's just very whiny. It's not a really cool. There's a lot of cringy scenes with him, just acting like a baby. Just not a good character. But after this, we get to see that Charles Xavier is healed, and Apocalypse gets that little parasite out of him and crushes it with his foot. Basically explains to them on what he did. Basically, he rapidly increased the speed of the virus until it was unable to be compatible with Xavier, and then it would shoot out trying to get to Apocalypse, but it wouldn't work because he's not biomechanical like he's not biological, I guess you could say, like Xavier. He's not just pure physical mass, but he has alien tech, so he's able to just squash it like nothing. It's pretty cool. And I really like his sarcasm with the X-Men during this scene, kind of just showing how more smart he is than them. Even though he's much older than them, it comes from the past, he also lives into the future. It's just very weird. He has time travel abilities. After this, we can see the X-Men, Wolverine, Cable, and Bishop fighting against the forces of Strife, and we get really cool action panels during this scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire book. From a writing standpoint and the action standpoint, they both made it very good in this issue, probably the best in all 12 to 13 issues. Apocalypse, Storm, Havoc, Psylocke, and I forgot what that other girl's name is. They all arrive, and Archangel and Iceman, and then there's another girl. They basically all come to help, Logan, Cable, and Bishop, and the fight is amazing. Now, eventually, the fight, ends, and Apocalypse states he's gonna go on his own, because that's his ways, survival of the fittest. He's trying to see if he can go fight Strife one-on-one, but he gets confronted by his own minions, and they basically tell him that through his rules, they have to fight to the death. He has to prove to them that he is strong enough to be their leader, and it's really cool, this scene, especially this panel where, Apocalypse says they go fight to the death. Amazing, survival of the fittest. Basically, we get to see that the X-Men are orbiting around the moon trying to find where exactly Gina and Scott are, and Professor Xavier basically tells everyone in the dock room with him that, or the medical room, basically, you would say, that Jean and Scott are in trouble and that they'll probably die with the incoming confrontation they're about to have with Strife, which is cool. And then we get, into the final portion of this book, which is the battle with Strife. I really enjoyed this panel at the very end before we go into the battle, where it shows a lot of the history they're seeing, because I guess Jean's power, I'm guessing, kind of projecting all the past of her and Scott and the battles they've had so far, and it's really cool. We also get to see Professor Xavier and Colossus on the bottom, and Magneto on the top, which we don't see him in the entire story, which is a shame, because Magneto is like one of the best characters, if not the best character in an X-Men. But yeah, so we get the battle between Cable and Strife, and it's a battle between, I guess, a clone and original. We don't really know which one is which, but the fight is pretty cool. It doesn't have a lot of action panels, but I don't think it needed to, because there was just so many players in this book that you couldn't really do a fair one-on-one fight and put all the focus on that. So I understand why we had it the way we did. Eventually, word gets to Archangel that Apocalypse is near death, so he goes on to finish off his father slash, maker, I guess you could say. I mean, he's not really his father, but made him to the Archangel, basically. And the battle continues between Cable and Stripe, showing off Cable's half-robotic body, which makes me believe that Cable is actually the original and Stripe is the copy, because it makes a lot more sense that Cable, lost part of his body and had to be replaced with some metal. And, Stripe basically makes fun of him about that, saying, how can you call yourself a man? So I'm guessing that that's why they did it, the writers, but again, it's never said straight up that who's the clone, who's not. So this is my favorite part of the book, straight up. I think the best character in the book was Archangel, because he had a huge character arc throughout this whole story, and for not forgiving Apocalypse or choosing a better path than what his father slash, creator guy made him choose. And this panel, or these panels right here, this one page, I think it's just awesome. I think it's a page that, just reading it by itself with no context, tells a message right here, which is that Apocalypse wants to die believing in his belief of the survival of the fittest, and only the strong should survive. So when Archangel basically denies him his death blow and says he will not kill him, basically it's the worst thing Apocalypse can go through, because he doesn't want to die just bleeding out. He wants to die a warrior's death with getting, decapitated, disintegrated, whatever it needs to be killed by a warrior's hand, someone strong. And I thought that was fantastic to show both characters' beliefs, and finally seeing Archangel make a decision for himself and not be clouded by hatred. An amazing page, and I have a lot of respect for the writers that wrote this issue. But going forward, also, before that, I don't believe Apocalypse died. He's definitely survived this story arc. But we'll see. I'll check out what stories come after this. But we can see that Cyclops, Jean, and Havoc all join Cable in fighting against Strife, basically telling Strife, basically Cyclops is with Jean. Jean basically says that they can work to heal everything that happened to Strife. But Strife doesn't want to, just give up. He's basically said he's too far gone already. Like, he knows they're just, lying to him. And considering if this is a clone or if it's the original, he has gone through a lot. And he probably won't change. So I really enjoyed this part of the book. But basically, I'm not sure if he uses psychic energy or something, or just straight up physical energy. But, Strife unleashes this huge beam of energy that is so large that it shades the entire planet, it seems. And, this is the moon. Now, the moon is not as big as the Earth, but in order to move the entire moon, I can't imagine how much kinetic force that must take. So, this is the part I was talking about whenever Strife defeated Apocalypse, who had barely counted the rejuvenation chamber. It made sense to me now, because if this character is that strong to shake the entire moon when he let out his full energy, it makes sense why he would put up a fight against Apocalypse, especially since Apocalypse barely had any power. If now 100% Apocalypse, not even close, maybe not even 50% would be a fight against Strife. It would just, Apocalypse would just slap him. But it made sense now to me, and I'm not that mad that Strife beat Apocalypse, because Apocalypse is barely even functioning, as we saw during the entire story. And yeah, so basically, Cable sacrifices himself. He pushes the self-destruct button, grabs Strife, and tells Cyclops to push the button. Eventually, time runs out, and Cyclops basically is told by Cable to push the button now, and Cyclops does. This is an emotional moment because we see the giant explosion. We see that, this vortex opens up and absorbs all the Strife stuff. Strife and Cable as well, and supposedly killing them. At least that's what the story implies. It's pretty cool. And we can see that Scott and Jean kind of wonder, as well as Havoc, on if, that was actually their son, like from way back then when they sent him into the future. Is basically, like Cyclops said, he basically, took him away for a second time, basically. This time being death, permanent. Even though, bad thing probably wouldn't be able to see his son either. But yeah, it's a very emotional moment to end the story off, and it was really cool to see everyone kind of come together in the end. Now we jump into Mr. Sinister, and basically we get to see that the canister that he had was materials, family genetic material of the Summers family, being Scott and I believe Havoc and maybe Jean Grey. I'm not sure if she counts as a Summer now that they're married. If that's what he meant, or if he just meant Scott and Havoc, Alex. If that's the case, then that's not bad either, and they are very powerful mutants, both of them. I'm not sure they're both on beta level or not, but it's pretty interesting to see that Mr. Sinister is interested in Scott's eugenics, basically, mutant genetics. But this leads us into the final issue. Now, one thing real quick is that Mr. Sinister was not able to have it because it was empty. It was a setup. So he does not have their DNA. So I'm guessing he's going to try getting it himself in a future story. I just going to be checking around on what I need to read after this, so I was very interested in seeing what happens after this story. But jumping into the epilogue, which is one issue long, we get to see that the Beast and Warrington / Archangel basically have a conversation, talking about their past, some of the fun stuff that they had going for them, and it's a really cool, friendship that's very developed, fleshed out in the story. And these pages were just fantastic to read through. They might have had a little bit of dialogue in them, a good amount, but it was fantastic dialogue. It wasn't like the rest of the book. It was very well done. And anytime Beast is on the panels, whoever was writing these issues, I think it was different writers, but you can tell that Beast is a very established character, and they seem to know how to write him. Same thing goes for Archangel. Like I said, Archangel is probably the best in the book. It was really a story about redemption for him. when it comes to his portion of the story, and it's fantastic. We get to see, Rogue and Gambit kind of with their relationship and how it's kind of rocky because of Rogue's ability to not touch people. And that was fantastic to see, as well as we finally get Professor Xavier. He is, completely healed, but he has a side effect due to the thing Apocalypse did to him, which allowed him to walk for a day or two or something like that. Maybe even a week. I can't remember the exact time that they gave it. But basically at the end of the story, him and Jubilee basically have some fun together throughout the final issue. And at the end, Jubilee kind of cries because she sees that Xavier kind of going back to where he can't walk. And at the end, she's helping him get back to his wheelchair. And that's where the X-Cutioner song's storyline ends. And it's a very good ending. I don't think it was, exactly the way I thought X-Cutioner song was going to end. But I think it was cool to see that relationship again bloom between Xavier and Jubilee. Overall, guys, X-Cutioner Song was a good book. I don't think it was bad. I think its flaws had to do with some of the fight scenes were hard to follow. There was too many characters, for sure. Having X-Force and X-Factor in the same book as the X-Men, I think, or event, I guess you could say, just didn't really work for me. A little too much fighting between all the members when it should have been focused on Strife, making him a better character, and of course Strife being a horrible villain, at least to me. If you have a different opinion on Strife, or maybe he has better outings in future stories if he comes back, let me know and I'll see if I can check those out. But I just did not like Strife. I thought he was a bad villain. Very whiny character, very babyish. But Cable is a little blown, basically too actiony based superhero. But I did enjoy Wolverine. I enjoyed Cyclops. I enjoyed Jean Grey. I enjoyed the Beast for sure. Gambit was cool. Rogue was cool. Storm was cool. Archangel, best character in the book by far. Iceman was pretty funny. The characters show up made this book and made me, enjoy reading through it, at least somewhat. Like I said, I wouldn't put it in my best books, but I think it was at least a good book, and I would recommend you check it out if you're a fan of the X-Men. Like I said, I'm pretty sure other X-Men stories are way better. I'm thinking about covering Fatal Attractions pretty soon, maybe next month. So I'm hoping that puts a lot better in the X-Men storylines. Definitely go check out X-Cutioner Song. Like always, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you to go check it out on Comicsology to support your comic books shops or support your comic book companies. And until next time, guys, if you're new to the channel, I review different comic volumes or storylines on the channel all in one go in one video. And that's the format I'm liking. I'm probably going to continue doing just volume reviews or trade paperback reviews, as I like to call them, because some of these, like X-Cutioner Song, are only one trade paperback. So that's how I'm kind of like doing my channel now. But I am going to be talking about King in Black. I'm going to read it either today or tomorrow, and hopefully that video out pretty soon, because I heard a lot of great stuff happened in it. And I do want to cover this, modern event, basically. I know this has been active for at least 2 years, so I do want to check it out, because I've been hearing a lot of good things about this first issue. So it's looking good. But until next time, guys, God bless you, and remember, guys, to always be ready to learn on the next lesson. See you later.